Hey guys, Erin, the dating advice girl, here with the fabulous Dr. Matt. He is president of the Empowerment Partnership, NLP. What is that? Well, he's the man that's going to tell us what NLP is, and actually I'm getting certified in it. He's going to tell you what that means and how it relates to dating, because that's what I do. You guys know. Okay, so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
How are you doing, Dr. Matt?
I'm doing good. Just got back from my vacation, so really chilled out and relaxed right now. It was really nice.
Oh, well, welcome back to work.
Yeah, yes.
Right? Yeah. Okay, great. So as I said before, Dr. Matt has been training me and thousands of others in getting certified in NLP. Dr. Matt, what is this NLP that I keep talking about?
Well, NLP stands for Neuro-linguistic programming, and it was created back in the 70s, and it was based on how people communicate. So Richard Bandler and John Grinder discovered that successful people communicate in a specific way. And NLP is just basically how do you get better at communicating with someone? Verbally, non-verbally, with specific words, with tonality, with body language, with everything.
That's great, and I know a lot of people who could use some help with all of that.
Oh yes.
Especially the verbal, actually all of it, non-verbal too.
Oh yeah.
Tonality, oh my God, some people have no idea what their tone is when they're talking to each other.
Big time.
Especially in dating.
Oh yeah, in dating, body language is huge. I mean, there are so many books out there on the body language of flirting, the body language of being excited and being connected with someone. NLP looks at that and how do you become successful with it.
So, Dr. Matt, there is this thing in NLP called mirroring and rapport.
Yes.
So, I love this one because I think we all kind of do it in a weird way, but we don't usually use a word associated with it. In terms of dating, how could that help someone if they were to like mirror someone? First of all, let's talk about what mirroring is.
Okay.
And then let's talk about how you can use it with people you're going out with.
Okay, so matching and mirroring, which is the basis of rapport, is having a similar body language. That's the easiest way to look at it.
Okay, so similar body language. This is how I'm going to try to, yes.
Perfect. So this would be matching and mirroring. You see kids doing this. You see people, if you ever see a couple and they're really connected with each other, you see them both leaning in while they're talking.
Totally.
Or they both lean back together at the same time. That's called matching and mirroring. The reason why that's important with dating is because you want to, at an early stage of getting to know someone, get into a better level of rapport to create that deeper level of trust and to see if that's the person that's right for you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say, as a doctor of psychology, in every study that I've read, body language speaks the loudest. And if you see two people on a date and one of them's leaning back and the other one's leaning forward, one's looking, you know immediately from a physiological perspective, nothing's gonna happen.
Well, and it's so funny because I literally can't go anywhere without looking at couples and being like, uh-oh, or oh, that's cute.
Right. And you can do this consciously. You can actually, when you're on a date with someone, now the key here is to avoid mimicking. When people first learn NLP, they think it's all about mimicking. So I'm moving my hands while I'm talking. If you did it at the same time, I would notice it.
You'd
and
be like, what is she doing?
Right.
What is she doing right now?
So it's really simple. You're on a date, the guy leans back, you wait a few moments, and you just, in the most comfortable way, you lean back. Or if the person touches their face, you could do that later on.
Okay.
And so it's the idea of creating a similarity on the physical level to open up that rapport. And that's the easiest way to approach it.
Oh, that's really good.
When I teach trainings, and I teach about 1,000 people a year, so I'll tell people to stop and look to the left and right, and you'll see people automatically doing this. Legs will be crossed, two people next to them, legs are crossed, maybe in a different way.
Yeah.
And you can immediately see that they're beginning to establish rapport. And we do this unconsciously. We don't do it with conscious intention.
So you're saying we do it unconsciously, but if somebody wanted to do it consciously, it's an unconscious way to establish some sort of connection with somebody?
It is totally.
Reframing. I love this one because so many times in our lives we have something that we can't get past, something that's happened in our lives that maybe keeps us in a negative space, especially with dating. The first thing that comes to mind is singles who are stuck on an ex or make it so that, oh, all women are like this or all men are like this because my ex was like this.
Right.
How could somebody reframe? Well, first let's talk about reframing, but also I want to give people a real example of how they could reframe a bad breakup so that it's not like, limiting their potential to find amazing partners.
I've gotten to work with people who are wanting to get into a new relationship. And one of the biggest patterns that I've seen over the past 20 years It's people that carry the baggage from the previous relationship into the next one.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, so then you have, and I have a friend that's like this, where he's with a different woman, I don't know, every 2 or 3 years, but it's the same woman.
Totally know what you're talking about.
Different name, you know, different hair color.
Just interchange.
But you're just interchanging it, and it's the same, what is the saying? Same stuff, different day?
There you go.
But anyway, the problem is that people don't get over the baggage side of it. They don't take the learning from it. Reframing is, how do we look at a negative situation and find the positive?
Love it.
Okay, so you get dumped.
Yes.
And you find out that the person that you were with has certain opinions of you.
Oh boy.
Some people sit there and they hold on to the negative in it.
Forever.
Go, I will never let someone treat me like that again. The problem is you create that in the next relationship.
Right.
Reframing is, what's the silver lining? What is the big lesson that you got from this? Do you learn that you need to be more upfront in the beginning of the relationship?
Sure.
Do you need to get better at communication and saying, here's what's important to me in a relationship?
Yeah.
The best advice that I can give on this, and having worked with a bunch of couples on this, make a list of all the things that are the gripes.
Yes.
And then for each of them, what's the positive?
Love it.
What is your lesson from it? What did you learn from it? What's the takeaway? And the positive for you, not the, well, that person was an awful individual. What's the takeaway for you? Because some people think that. They think that's a reframe. That reframing it is, well, that person was psychotic. Okay, that's not a reframe. A reframe is, maybe I need to be clear up front with what I want. And then once you've done that and you figure out all the things that you got out of that, then begin to focus in on, what are you looking for, not what are you trying to avoid.
I love it, and I do it in my workshops. I say it all the time. What are you looking for, not what do you not want?
Yeah.
Because then you put that out in the universe. What you don't want, so then you get more of what you don't want.
Once you've figured out, here's the baggage, what did I learn from it? Now, what do you really want? What do you want in a relationship? And you focus in on that. And don't settle. You don't settle for anything.
Don't settle, everybody, please. And the whole reframing thing is so important, because I just know so many people, you know, I live in Los Angeles, I'm based here, and it's amazing to me how many people are like, there are no good single people in Los Angeles. How awful, everyone says it. I'm like, how awful a statement. And I think the same thing. I know so many amazing people. I don't know why these amazing people aren't meeting the other amazing people, but it's really sad to me that that's someone's outlook. So of course they're meeting like people who aren't a good match for them, if that's their mindset. So reframing is so important.
Exactly. And the building the what do you want in a relationship, because then you can look at that criteria of what you want and ask yourself, where does that person hang out? Do they hang out at a nightclub? See, if the person you want doesn't hang out at a nightclub, and they hang out at a Whole Foods, you might want to go to Whole Foods to look for your date, not a nightclub.
I feel like you like secretly sat in on my workshop.
No, I haven't.
Like all the stuff I talk about in my dating workshop.
Okay, perfect.
It's great. Okay, so Dr. Matt, there's this thing that I'm learning in my studying of NLP right now called sensory acuity.
Yes.
I love this because it is kind of like the show, you've referenced the show a few times, that show Lie to Me that was on several years ago. So good. It's about like reading facial movements and things. Tell us what that is and how we could maybe use it with flirting. Okay.
Sensory acuity is a fancy way of saying you see that something has changed outside of you. So you're looking at someone and you notice that there's a difference. Their face turns red. If you've ever been embarrassed in your life and your face turns red,
never, you guys.
I have amazing color shifts. I'll be teaching and someone will say something crazy. You were there, and I'll have like a full-on color shift.
I saw it a couple of times. I think.
And that can happen to anyone. Noticing that's all sensory acuity is. You notice that there's a difference.
Okay.
The show Please Lie to Me, this guy has really good sensory acuity, and he's also memorized what do certain facial expressions mean. If you don't spend the time to memorize it, you can't tell if someone's lying.
Of course. So like the first time you meet somebody, you don't know what's normal for them or not, or whatever.
Right. So it's kind of difficult. I get people that ask me all the time, I'm single, I want to know, is this person I'm dating being truthful? Okay, that takes time to get to figure that one out. You learn the person, you can see what they look like when they're not being truthful, see what they look like when they're being truthful. Then you could use sensory acuity.
And even then it could be difficult.
It could be very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, even the guy that is gifted at this, the TV show was based on, he still makes mistakes.
Of course.
I prefer to do this with flirting.
Yes. Me too.
My son, right? He gets into high school, and I said to him, if I can share with you anything, because he's a good kid, he's got really good values, treats women really well, and that's important to me. So I said, I want to teach you how you know when someone's flirting.
I love it. I love this.
And
Your kid.
he was like, go for it, Dad. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I said to him, the first thing you do is learn what flirting looks like. What does it look like when a woman looks at you a certain way, when she talks a certain way, when she does the head bob, and you see it with your friends. So you see your friends do that, and then the moment you see it with you, notice it, recognize it.
Yes.
And then I said,
Self-awareness.
Awareness. And then I said, then do something with it. Flirt back and see if there's a shift in her color. You know, does she giggle? Does she do something? I said, because
Or does she back away?
Or does she back away? And you were completely off base. I said, the key is to learn what, number one, flirting looks like.
Yes.
Gain an awareness of what it looks like. And then begin to take baby steps when you see that in your direction. Test the water. Realize you're going to miss sometimes and realize that you're going to make it sometimes.
I mean, seriously, it's like you could be like a flirting Jedi if you could like figure out, oh, that person's flirting with me, or they aren't. I'm not going to waste my time with that person. I'm going to go over to that person who's giving me a certain eye or is blushing a little bit.
Even more so, sensory acuity is important because in NLP, we teach that the better you get a sensory acuity, you can see the more subtle shifts. You can see the little things of, is he or she making eye contact? Are they paying attention to you when you're talking? Are they nodding when you're talking?
I know.
And but more importantly than that is then I think gaining the confidence to then take a step and see, is there something there, or is it just the person is, you know, building rapport or being friendly?
And let's just say, guys, girls too, but guys, just take a risk. Because if a girl isn't interested in you, it's not the end of the world, but at least you weren't like, oh, I wish I would have or I wonder if that girl was, and you just go and you do it, and if it doesn't work out, go to the next, move on to the next lady. I hate it. It's like, take a chance. You know?
That's what I told Ethan. I said, if you get a no, that just means you move on to the next one.
It just made your job easier in some ways because they're weeding themselves out. That's what I say all the time.
So I think the whole part about figuring out what was the baggage that you had from the previous, what is your lesson from that, the learning, and what do you really want in a relationship?
What do you want? Not what you don't want.
Not what you don't want. What do you actually want with someone?
Yes.
Getting clear on that. It's like I go back to what I teach my kids. You know, my daughter's 8. She's already begun to ask certain questions about boys, and that's kind of scary. When my son was asking, I'm like, yeah. My daughter, I'm like, no,
not
too
time
early.
for that.
Sorry, that's just. But you know, it's the same thing that I said to my son. I said, you got to learn what you want, and you got to learn where to find it, and then begin to build up the confidence to communicate with individuals.
Communication.
That's NLP. NLP is all about communication. How do you get better at communicating with yourself, with others, communicating with self, looking at problems in a different way, communicating with others, getting better at body language, rapport, sensory acuity. All of those things are extremely important.
I love it, and just try it yourselves. Like, write down even just a list of 5 things that you'd really like in a partner. Not necessarily aesthetic things, like he has to be 6'4". Oh no, because blue eyes and whatever.
Blue eyes,
no.
6'4".
Like in terms of personality traits or relationship style, some people want more of a traditional relationship. Some people don't. You never know. Write down 5 things that would be big things for you in a relationship, and you'll notice that you'll start noticing those people, or not noticing people who don't fit that, which will make your choosing way easier and less stressful in a city like Los Angeles when there's so many amazing things and amazing people here.
See, if you don't know what you want, you don't even know what to look for.
Yes.
And I agree with you, man. I get 100 people in the room, and I sometimes looked out at the audience and said, how many of you are clear on what you want in a relationship, in a career path, in any area?
Oh my God.
More people can express what they don't want. Well, I don't want someone who goes out late and doesn't come back home. I don't want someone who doesn't call me the night after. They know what they don't want. Okay, what do you want? Someone who is open with communication, someone who is tender, loving, all of these things. Get to know what you want.
Yes.
And then begin to build your, how do I go get that? How do I go